Here's a really odd question. Actually, a fun question. Was that a three-legged chicken? That's really the question. Was that a three-legged chicken? I had another one on the same subject, but chose the chicken one instead. The other question was, are you Ozymandias? Are you Ozymandias? Well, I'll get to Ozzy later. But first, here's one of my all-time favorite stories. A young man from the city was driving his new convertible, top down, along a narrow winding country road at a leisurely speed of about 30 miles an hour. He was enjoying the fresh air and sunshine on his face when he noticed out the driver's side that a chicken, was running right alongside of him. He was surprised that it could run that fast. So he stepped it up to 35, just for fun. He looked, the chicken was still there. So he pushed it up to 40. So did the chicken. The man was shocked and confused, but he started to notice that the chicken almost seemed to have 3 legs. Then all of a sudden, the chicken took off past him, turned right in front of him, down a farmer's dirt driveway. The man hit the brakes, cranked the steering wheel, and followed the chicken toward the farm. By the time he got there, the chicken had run out of sight, but the farmer was standing there right in front of the barn. The puzzled man jumped out of his car, and asked, "Did you see a really fast chicken run through here?" "Yup, I did. One of mine," said the farmer. The young man, tilting his head to one side, asked, "I have to know, was that a 3-legged chicken?" "Yup, I breed 'em that way. Got a whole flock somewhere out behind the barn. They run all over the place." Wide-eyed, the young man asked, "I've got to know. Why do you breed them that way? Why do you breed 3-legged chickens?" The farmer answered, "Well, you see, I like a drumstick, and so does the wife. But then years ago, my brother-in-law moved in, and hasn't moved out, and he wanted a drumstick too. So I bred 3-legged chickens, created them myself. Took years and years, spent huge amounts of time and money doing it." By this point, the young man from the city was fully into the farmer's story. He asked, "Do they taste the same? Do they taste the same as the 2-legged chickens?" The farmer gruffly responded, "What?" The young man asked again, "Do they taste the same as the 2-legged chickens?" The farmer, shaking his head, responded, "Don't know. Can't catch one." I love that story, and you might be surprised, but there is a biblical truth buried in it. Let me explain. You see, the farmer spent years and years of his life creating something that ultimately was of no value to himself and no value to anyone else. See where I'm headed? Listen to the words of Jesus from Matthew 7. Matthew 7 in the New Testament. Jesus said, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house. And yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock." And Jesus continued, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall." You see the lesson? Don't build your life house on the sand. Don't be like the farmer who spent all his time and resources building something ultimately of no value. Skeptic, seeker, anything you build on, any foundation other than faith in Jesus Christ, will not stand up to the storms of this life and to the final storm of death. And Jesus said, not me, Jesus said, your fall will be great. And believer, listen to this loose paraphrase, my paraphrase of the Apostle Paul's words from 1 Corinthians 3. Each man must be careful how he builds on the foundation of faith in Jesus. If any man builds on it with eternal or with temporal materials, each man's work will be exposed, for the fire of judgment will show the quality of each man's work. If any man's work which he has built on it remains, he will receive a reward. If any man's work is burned up, he will suffer loss. Believer, are you building for your eternity, Or are you building with just temporal wood, hay, and straw? Are you committed, really committed to the three things that last forever? God, God's Word, and people? And if you are, how are you investing in them? And will you have anything to take with you into eternity? And will your earthly legacy be little more than your dog's, an empty dish? The English poet Shelley published a poem in January of 1818. Its title, Ozymandias. Just 14 short lines. I told you I'd get back to Ozzy. Listen carefully. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." You see, Ozymandias' life work was reduced by the winds and storms of time to just pieces of a pretentious statue, fallen, broken, and alone in a barren wasteland. So I ask you, skeptic, seeker, what will be the result of your life? Will you have built on the right foundation, the foundation of faith in the rock, Jesus? Or will you have built on sinking sand? Will your foundation and life withstand the storms, the windstorms of time and the final storm of death? And believer, what will you leave behind? Will it be more than an empty dish? And what will you have sent on ahead into eternity? What will be your reward? I'm John Morris. I'll see you on the next Just a Question.